I'm going to show now the second architect from a contemporary architect from Bangladesh, RAFIQ AZAM, and I think you'll like his work. He's younger and he's contemporary, and this is the man. I mean, I look at his white socks. Somebody told me, a lady in the United States, that all men who wear white socks are kind of childish. They still have a great attachment to their mothers. Well, it was said, as you probably know, that architects, great architects, important architects, first build for their mothers. Le Corbusier did, Frank Lloyd Wright did, Venturi did, and maybe Azam did too, RAFIQ AZAM. But his wild socks, I couldn't not notice them. Anyway, he's an interesting architect and very successful, and you'll see in what sense I use the word successful. He wanted to study first painting, and like Jean Nouvel, who also wanted first to study painting and then became an architect, because Jean Nouvel was not accepted in the Beaux-Arts school, and I don't know about Azam. So he's a graduate from Bangladesh University of Engineering and Technology in 1989. His practice, Shatoto, Architecture for Green Living, was established in May 1995. So his practice is now 25 years old, 26. We look first at this residence by this architecture office called Shatoto, which is his. And yeah, it is an opulent building, a lot of concrete. He tries to soften that concrete with a lot of vegetation, and he often uses pools. So water is always in the vicinity of concrete and vegetation. There is also hidden in the shadow a Mercedes. What can we do? Inequalities exist all over the world. I personally am not happy with this. But what can you do? There are rich people and there are people who are not rich. And it has been like this even in communism, as you well know. But the building is fine, is a good building. The only thing that saddens me a little bit is that this kind of opulence, and we are going to see other pictures, does not belong to many other people. My egalitarian spirit is a little bit saddened by this. Yes, this is a building for someone who didn't probably look scared at his bank account. It's a large building in the city, and various levels. Look at this pool, which is not on the ground level. Personally, I think that his architecture is fine, and the idea to bring water in an intimate connection with the building is a fine idea. The proximity between water and buildings is, I think, a good one. But for some reason, the way he does these pools disappoints me a little bit, because in opposition to the way he uses the green, meaning the bushes and everything we see here green, it's so free and so discreet at the same time. It's abundant but also discreet somehow. It's a nice conversation between nature and the geometry of the building. I don't know if he worked with a landscape architect or not. If he did, all the applause is for the landscape architect. If he did this, by his instincts as an architect, I think he deserves the applauses. I truly admire the way he uses green, the greenery of nature, without domesticating it too much. I said this before, and I will say it again. I think we need nature to be almost as free as possible. But the swimming pools or the pool, in my opinion, is a little bit too, we'll arrive at pictures with it, a little bit too contrived, too controlled, too clean, and too geometrical. Otherwise, the building is fine. The fence, you know, of course, here the owner doesn't seem to care too much about the, you know, rather opulent usage of electrical energy. The bulbs are quite active. What can we say? We are confronted with climate change and with issues of sustainability and all kinds of problems. Perhaps we should use less, even electrical energy, because all of these excesses affect our life in the present. It's a big house. As I said, it's an opulent house. The concrete is finely, you know, built. Maybe not as impressively as in the case of Tadao Ando, but impressively enough. And so, you know, it's a building that says, look, you know, we look forward towards the future with confidence because we can. But I have some hesitancies. Again, because I think the excesses of the rich are to be tempered. Otherwise, the discrepancies between the very poor, I mean, in Bangladesh, even in Dhaka, there are people who walk without shoes and with animals on the roads. And you would expect this kind of villa in, you know, in Hollywood, in Palm Springs, or who knows where, in East Hampton, New York. But in Bangladesh, I think it's a little bit offensive for the other people. I mean, look at this pool, you know, it's perfect, but to be honest with you, it irritates me a little bit, this perfection, because it neglects the realities of what is outside of this house. So I know that the architect is an accomplice of those in power and those who are rich, but I cannot easily accept this situation. And look at that, maybe the child of the owner, or I don't know, or the owner himself is hard to see from here. Kind of sadly alone in that glorious pool of his, you know. Anyway, I express some ideas. Some people might think and feel differently, but all in all, I think his architecture being fine, and I love the way he uses vegetation. I'm less impressed by the way he uses water. I once had a chance to be in a Muslim garden, an Islamic garden in Spain, and I was fascinated by the incredible sensitivity of the Arabs to understand water. There were thin channels of water and little springs, and it was just a symphonic work with water. I don't see here a lot of sensitivity vis-a-vis water. It's just a large pool that is rather, you know, I think is a little bit arrogant. And it shouldn't be, because water should never be considered as being arrogant. But it's not the mistake, the deficiency of water, but it's the deficiency, I think, of the architect. Strangely, because he is a sensitive architect. I don't know. I don't think he understands water very well. But otherwise, he's a very skillful architect, and I particularly like the way he brings nature into his architecture. And we'll see other examples. I also like very much this sketch by him. It's almost like by a great master of ancient old times in China or Japan. It's very well done, I think. And unfortunately, we'll see some more recent drawings, architectural sketches, in my opinion, less graceful, less poetical. So these are the drawings of the building we just saw. You see, there are there 4 floors, and I mean, this is not a building for everybody. Another residence by Chatoto. Again, the ample pool, which probably is beneficial to the temperature in the building because it refreshes the air, but it also takes care. It needs care. You know, look, the water is at the level of the entrance into the building or at the level of the floor. Again, a very opulent house. It could have been an institution here, an office or something. It's just a villa for one of those people who were born under a lucky star. I wonder what they feel when they get out of their palace and they walk on the streets that don't even have asphalt, and they see people who with animals and without shoes. I wonder what they feel. Do they feel good about themselves? I wouldn't in their place. I would feel ashamed. But I'm probably most surely naive and unacceptably idealistic. He claims his architecture is green, as you saw from the beginning, and it's true. He brings the green world into the building convincingly, but less convincingly might be the vastness of the spaces he creates with vast surfaces of concrete. The concrete is not a sustainable material. Frank Lloyd Wright protested against the concrete. He didn't like concrete at all. He called it a conglomerate. He did use it sometimes, a little bit, just a little bit. But I understand, I think, why Frank Lloyd Wright didn't like concrete. Although I like it, aesthetically I like it. I like even brutalist architecture very much. And we are going to see some buildings by Le Corbusier in concrete in India. This is a house, it's a residence, but it could have been an institutional building, a cultural center, an office, even a small museum or a school, or anyway. Again, I wonder what the owners of this house feel when they leave the house and see very different realities on the street. In a way, it's sad. So I actually think an architect should not be indifferent to these social discrepancies. Although it's true, architects always worked by necessity for those in power and rich. You know, Palladio would not have built if he built if he had to build for those who didn't have power and didn't have authority and didn't have money. But I still dream of a world where the differences between the very rich and the very poor are attenuated, are diluted. It's probably a dream, and probably it will never happen. Yeah, that's why capitalism is so-called successful, because it addresses, in a way, the beast in human beings. You know, an ideology which claims that to make a profit is moral and not to make a profit is immoral. In my opinion, it's a sick ideology, but this is the ideology of capitalism. And even China, which was communistic, Rem Koolhaas in a conference I attended, this was in the early 90s, he said there were huge signs on the side of the highways in China at that time, with banners with the words, "To get rich is glorious." And they did get rich, but I don't know if it's so glorious. Um, anyway, so this, I mean, look at this so-called residence. It could have been, as I said, very well a museum, or I don't know, some kind of an office. It's huge. And it's in the center of the, it's in the, you know, it's within the city. It's not like rural villas of Palladio outside of Vicenza or whatever. This eats up a lot of land, a lot of space within the city. The very same city where some people probably don't even have a room, one single little room at their disposal. Here we see like a composite drawing of the architect with some notations, and you see the ample pool there. In my opinion, a little bit too ample, but again, the proximity of the water does good to the building. And this is the, I imagine this is the owner or something is connected with the building. I found this sketch, and I like it. I mean, it shows culture, it shows, you know, the past, it shows even something of a spiritual nature. So it makes me fantasize that somehow the building in some way had a more sensitive program, but its opulence, in my opinion, is a little bit antithetical to that. Now, this is a mosque by Shatoto, and it's very well done, with one exception, and we'll arrive at it. The text description of the architects, located adjacent to this graveyard in the city. The mayor, Mohammad Hanif Mosque, is a threshold space. Threshold space, I wonder what that means. I'm sorry. Inspired by the Azam Shah Mosque built by the Mughals in that fort. The new design is a departure from traditional mosques in both physical and philosophical designs, combining all the new ideas into a contemporary concept. A key feature derived from the Mughal mosque was the shan, an extended terrace attached to the entrance of the main hall. The shan provides additional prayer space when the interior is full, but otherwise acts as a social hub for the community. Since it borders Azimpur Road on the south and Azimpur Graveyard on the north, the mosque acts as a transitional space between the terrestrial and the celestial, where the shan is the veil between the realms. I like this word very much, the veil, and the veil between the realms, and the transitional space between the terrestrial and the celestial. This makes me think of what Geme Cantacuzino said, that the architect is supposed to serve man and his gods. And so if we can somehow address both the terrestrial and the celestial in as many buildings as we can, I think we do something positive. Anyway, the main hall is a large, sorry for this kind of long text, is a large open space held up by cement columns with trunks that expand into canopies which hold up the slabs above. And here is the problem with the building, and I will arrive there. Creating an indoor forest. Windows along the north and east walls flood the room with daylight, while the perforated brick wall on the south filters light and noise coming from the road. Floor lights are organized in Qatar lines. I don't know what this means, Qatar lines, to indicate where to stand during prayer, and alongside ring lights attached to the columns provide unobtrusive ambient lighting. Now you see these columns, they irritate me, and I can tell why. I can say why. They are in a way caricatures of the columns, the mushroom columns that Frank Lloyd Wright built at the Johnson Wax building in Wisconsin. And strangely, even Toyo Ito did something, did the same. And to me, it's actually very surprising that such very well educated and sensitive architects are not afraid of the possible, accusation that I mean, the similarity is just too obvious. And unfortunately, the columns here do not have the nobility, the slenderness, the proportions and the design of those done by Wright. You could say, maybe one could say it's just a coincidence. I don't know. And if it is a coincidence, it's an unfortunate coincidence. Otherwise, the building towards the outside is fine. Again, brick, again, a kind of an architecture that seems to be at home in Bangladesh. And it makes us think also of Mr. Islam, whose work we saw earlier. So there is a connection. In fact, this contemporary architect was influenced by Islam. Now you see the people on the road, the ones that I mentioned, with tricycles, with bicycles. There are also often animals. Now think about that very opulent concrete building, being too far away from such urban realities. This is the mosque, and I think it's a fine architecture. It is rectangular, but the brickwork is sensitive and is fine, and even the small portions with vegetation are appropriately adorning the building. As I said, the only thing that disturbs me are these columns. The capital is too big, is too large, and the column itself seems to be too short. It's something a little bit, for my taste, and I am subjective, I could be wrong, but my taste tells me that they could have been done better. Otherwise, such oasis or such an oasis of calmness is welcomed even in a mosque. And, it's no wonder that that gentleman is maybe contemplating, thinking, or praying in the vicinity of the pool. Otherwise, here it looks kind of too official, too big. It could have been a university here. Again, those columns that, mushroom columns, which in my opinion are not very inspired. You see, lots of people without shoes. And I think it's fine to walk without shoes. It's just that walking without shoes and stepping into a Mercedes and stepping out of a huge concrete building might be a little bit somehow, contradictory, but maybe I am too conventional in my thinking. Why not? Why not step out of a glorious villa, almost a palace, and then step in a glorious car, having no shoes? After all, even David Bowie, who had plenty of money, well, he did have shoes just before he died, but he didn't have socks. He didn't like socks. And Einstein also didn't like socks. And I think I understand why they didn't like socks. Socks are really a pain in the neck or somewhere else. Because I don't know about you, but for me, I'm never able to find two socks of the same color. It's just impossible for me. I find a black one, a blue one, I cannot find a pair. It's impossible. The solution is, of course, to have all the socks the same color. That is a solution, and I will think about it. But even Kenneth Frampton told me once, many years ago, when I used to have a friendly relationship with him when I lived in New York. And once we met at a restaurant, and he told me that when he was a child, he used to wear thick woolen socks embroidered by his grandmother. But that once he was a mature man in New York, he only had black, sophisticated, simple cotton socks. Well, enough about the socks. We are back to the mosque. There are no relationships between socks and the mosque, but although they kind of sound similarly a little bit. The sock and the mosque, I could very easily pronounce wrongly both. Anyway, I like this tower. It makes me think of the towers in San Gimignano in Italy, the towers that influenced and inspired Louis Kahn when he did the Richard's laboratories in Philadelphia, the building that actually launched him as an international architect of great importance. So, you know, if you look from above, you might say that you might not say that this building is a mosque. But I think somehow the very fact that it's not trying to mimic a so-called religious building is a virtue, is not a deficiency. I don't know about this extensive usage of glass in a climate which is certainly hot. I don't think glass is such an appropriate, but it is a touch of so-called contemporary design. But I find it a little bit problematic and a little bit commercial. He also uses these round openings into the slabs. We'll see it in at least another case a little later. So brick architecture, just like we saw in the case of Islam, his predecessor, whom he admired very much, and I think it was a legitimate admiration. You see how powerful such a simple tower can be. You know, it's just a tall prism made of brick, but I think it has vigor, it has power as an architectural entity. And almost by itself, just by itself, signifies something of that transcends in a way the terrestrial, you know, something spiritual, like the clock tower of a church. Or in its silence, this tower says there is something here that might not belong just to the, you know, to the earth. Now, of course, we see here a van emerging from the belly of the building. Again, what can we do? We are in the 21st century. Even a mosque has a van emerging from the belly, from its belly, as probably many vans will emerge from the belly of the Cathedrala Neamului, the cathedral of the people, so to speak, in Bucharest, which has probably a very vast, ample parking underneath it. All for the glory of God, of course. God and Pepsi, because those vans probably bring to the belly of the cathedral also Pepsi Cola and other indispensable goodies of our time. Okay, enough with the sarcasm. Look at those cars. I mean, I don't understand what this man felt when I only now I notice in the section. I mean, those people are praying there, and underneath we have that enfilade, that myriad of cars. It's incredible to me. I could have never done something like this. I know a sense of reality made him do this, but I find it so ludicrous, you know. Anyway, contemporaneity. Apartments. It's a good apartment building. Again, not for the humble ones. They are good towers. It's good architecture, but again, it's probably for some kind of yuppies of Bangladesh, of Dhaka. This 2-apartment block is one of a kind. I mean, even this one of a kind irritates me, to be honest with you. By Shatoto responding to the new building construction rules for Dhaka, 2006. Such rules require a 50% mandatory free ground coverage and the maximum building height of 45 meters. Uh, yes, they are good, but this attribute, one of a kind, shows an elitism that I think someone who is a little bit wiser and a little bit more modest would not have used. You might say, wait a minute, you are against excellence. You are against. No, I'm not. In fact, I admire true excellence. But an enfilade of vans and cars underneath the mosque, I cannot admire. I am very sorry. I mean, just imagine you pray and you hear the motor, the engine of the car starting, right? Oh, what kind of a praying that is? It's just, but then the chapel Notre Dame du Haut by Le Corbusier, the famous Ronchamp, there is an airport nearby, and the noise of the planes flying above the chapel is sometimes unbearable. Anyway, modernity, what can we say? Look at this affectation, you could say. It has some meaning sometimes, but what is the privilege of these people? Although I see one here too. Anyway, you might say that these holes in the slabs could represent some kind of a longing for the vertical connection with with the sky, with the heavens, with the divinity above, maybe. Anyway, what do we read there? South Breeze. Yes, how conveniently named, no? A South Breeze, but only for the chosen ones. There is no equality in the world, that's for sure. It never was and it never will, unfortunately. But I think we have to strive towards it. We have to struggle somehow to an extent. I feel maybe this does not belong to him, but this is vulgar and commercial. But his architecture is not vulgar and commercial, and he is a good architect. It's just that the mundanity, the mundane aspects of practicing architecture probably they are difficult to escape. And if you want to build, if you don't want to build, then yes, you can be a purist, in your round room, dreaming about a better world, but being unable to build, which might not be bad, actually. I remember what Leon Krier said some years ago. Well, at the end of the 20th century, he said, I am an architect, therefore I do not build. But I feel this statement is perverse, because I do believe that an architect, it is only normal to attempt to build and to confront your vision, your drawings, your model, your intellectual construct with the realities of a built work. Unfortunately, that built work is against, it's not serving the climate change. I mean, it is serving the climate change, unfortunately, and it is not a very sustainable enterprise. So it is a dilemma today, and it is for me as well, and I'm sure for you. What should we do? We are architects. Should we continue to cover the earth with concrete structures, or maybe some other kinds of structures, taller and taller, wider and wider, and so on? Should we? Is it what we need truly? Anyway, now this is a good building, but for a famous company, I forgot where, in Thailand, I think. It's a good architecture, but it is an architecture that celebrates, the rhetorical accomplishments of high capitalism. Here we see considered as one of the largest developers in Malaysia. So not Thailand, Malaysia. The new large venture, Setia Alam, is located in the Shah Alam area, southwest of Kuala Lumpur. In this approximately 5,000 acres of new city, this company decided to build their own headquarters. This developed the idea for a very formal design approach to emphasize on the social commitment of this company, contribute in the national development of Malaysia through their edifice in this new city. Further to that, this headquarters has been designed as a green building and achieved first ever private commercial building in Malaysia, Green Buildings Platinum certification. I don't know very well, but I could imagine what that platinum certification is. This is the building. It is a good building. It is well done. It is mainstream. This is a mainstream architecture. It's true. But somehow my heart is closer, more affectionate to that almost deserted and, with spots of darkness, brick building by his predecessor, Islam. This building, indeed, it is civilized, it is clean, it is functioning, it is refined, but somehow I feel it is lying. These real estate developers, what do? We know very well what they do. They make money. That's what they are interested in. And then, of course, they need the cultural appearance, the cultural fascia. They need a facade because someone had told me kind of amusingly, artists always talk about money and bankers always talk about painting or art. Why? Because we always talk about what we don't have. Artists don't have money, so they talk about money, and bankers don't have culture or don't have art, so they talk about art. Here we have a company that is almost surely, unscrupulously devoted to financial transactions, need a cultural effigy, a cultural symbol of the humanism and so on. But I feel there is demagogy here, as far as I know a little about what real estate means and the so-called developers. These developers do not build for the poor. These developers build for the rich, and that's how they are able to build this glorious building. I am not contesting the qualities, architectural qualities of the building. I am a little bit hesitant to applaud its morals or its ethics. Look on the right, we have, it seems to be a thin water curtain. These are things that are done with expenditures. And look at these columns. They are beautifully executed. They are clean. It's a fine concrete. They support a great slab. And through that hole in the great slab, God enters the building ornated with financial transactions. So everything is fine. It's a perfect world. Otherwise, yes, the building is, it's well done in its kind of commercial way. But if we begin to investigate further what is behind this glory, we might have, or I might have some question marks. But the skill of the architect is here for all to see. I like nature. I love nature. When I look this, I become less hesitant and I become more joyous because I think he does have a skill. Again, I don't know. Maybe I imagine he uses some landscape architect, but the decision is his as well. I think the way he brings vegetation in the proximity of his buildings is an inspired one most of the time. Even here, in the case of an institutional, corporate building, a headquarters, nothing else. But this field almost makes me, dream of running through it and maybe playing with a balloon, being childlike and totally unworried about, social discrepancies and so on. Those social discrepancies do exist. I still think he's not as equally skillful in the way he handles water. The intention is good, but it's too simplistic, to create this sea of water geometrized by the limits of the pool. This is a sketch, an initial sketch. And now we go to another building, Southwater Cariz. It's a residential building, block of flats, where again, I like the way he brings the vegetation in. I am not going to read this. I'm sorry. I don't like to read text. It could be boring, but we look at the pictures, and I will improvise some thoughts and words. But you don't even need my words, because looking at the pictures, you can understand in a way what the building is about. It's a building that doesn't seem to have too many restrictions in terms of space. These are apartments for people who don't have a very limited budget, and it's a good building. But and it is good, yes, in this respect. I do agree with him that he does make the attempt to bring the vegetation, to bring the green, to bring nature inside the house almost. Otherwise, the spaces are kind of ceremonial and cold even. I mean, this looks like almost like an office. A conference table with all those identical black chairs around it. But you see again the beauty of nature, the beauty of this thin, tree. And I truly think the more we bring nature to our built work, the better. And if we restrain a little bit our architectures, make the rooms a little bit smaller and make more room for nature, it will be even better. Because I don't think we have too many reasons to be so gloriously emphasizing man as the measure of all things. Because we are destroying the earth, is known. And we are also destroying ourselves. And maybe even the pandemic is some kind of a consequence of our excesses. But he had the skill and the sensitivity to have these trees, and I'm so happy he didn't cut the trees down and allowed it to be there, almost in the middle of the path. By the way of this, I don't know if you know, at Falling Water by Frank Lloyd Wright, there is a beam that it was just a pergola, but there is a beam that was also almost hitting a very slender tree. It was going right towards it, and Wright decided to go around it and save that very slender tree, a young tree, very slender, in a huge forest, because the Falling Water, as you know, is built in a forest. So someone less sensitive would have cut down that so-called damn little tree. That was not right. Right, in fact, it's a beautiful example of what a great architect understood by, the importance of nature. To not cut down even, a so-called insignificant tree. There are no such things as insignificant trees. It's really a very fine example that an architect, and not in our time when we are, as you know, confronted with the serious crises, climate change, the rising level of the seas, the pollution, and so on. In the 19th century or early 20th century, the United States, the Midwest, well, this was in Pennsylvania, sorry, the Falling Water, but the same, was a different time and a different context, and still Frank Lloyd Wright didn't cut down that tree. I have that image somewhere, and I can show it to you, or you can find it yourself. But it's very beautiful, again, that this architect from Bangladesh allows so-called wild nature to manifest herself, even in the context of a building that otherwise is celebrating to a significant extent the position of a human being in a world dominated by that human being. Dominated, but not completely, exactly because of this greenness that he brings into the building or in the proximity of the building. The more green, the better. This is my opinion. Period. Okay, we move forward. The sketch you see is a little bit, he changed, you know, architecture, the practice of architecture changes one. You saw that very sensitive and poetical sketch at the beginning. Now we see here almost the angst of the architect who tries to accommodate functions. He tries to disrupt those functions with a green, as we can see, but he seems to use markers, not, pen with a rib or I don't know what he used, some kind of a traditional, tool or technique. And now he uses markers, and the markers are not very, they are a little prosaic. And I mean, look at that blue. Gone is the sensitiveness of the sketch at the beginning. Now we see the so-called common architect drawing quickly a sketch, a room with the doors and some approximations of trees. If you compare this sketch with the sketches and drawings of Frank Lloyd Wright, you see two architects completely different. The drawings of Frank Lloyd Wright are very, very sensitive and very, very skillfully drawn with colored pencils. And I don't think Wright would have never drawn the trees like this, where you see the word road. I don't think he would have ever made the lake to symbolize it graphically or to represent it graphically in that brutal blue way. But this is an architect from the present who is in a rush to build quickly another building and earn more commissions, and probably skeptical about the sensitivity of his clients, forgetting in the process his own sensitivity. This is what I'm afraid. Because initially I saw something very different. But what can we do? I mean, yes, we could do something. Maybe we can learn, and that's why I think it's so important to study the very important architects. And I refer to Frank Lloyd Wright because he was a very important architect. He was not always right. That's why his students and his employees sometimes called him Frank Lloyd Wrong, not Frank Lloyd Wright, because he was not always right, of course, but his drawings are beautiful. Anyway, this architect has qualities. You see, he's playing with those small, oases of green, little courtyards, and yeah. But the latest sketches I saw by him, I don't like.